Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Dave Tyler. I manage partner relations for the audio business at Avid. Know many of the people in this room, but if you don't know me and want to sort of talk some more, then please come and introduce yourself. So this talk today, I want to talk about SDKs and APIs, obviously something which is near and dear to all of your hearts. And I think it's probably true to say that over the years, the word openness is not one which is always associated with Pro Tools. I think there's been times in the Pro Tools history where we've had sort of closed ecosystems. But I did want to make the point that right from the very, very beginning of Pro Tools, so from day one of the sort of reasons for the success of Pro Tools is opening up to third-party plugins. So Waves, for example, being there right at the very, very beginning with our first sort of hardware-accelerated systems. In relation to that, I also wanted to pay tribute to a very special person. So there's a guy called Ed Gray, who really was the architect of everything around sort of SDKs and APIs that relate to Pro Tools. He started that in digital design right back in the early days. And Ed died just coming up for a year ago, as I say, and his fingerprint is all over everything that we have in Pro Tools today in terms of SDKs, but also building a developer community for Pro Tools. So I think that you, third-party developers, play a really big part of the future of Pro Tools. I think there's a recognition, probably around the industry, but certainly at Avid, that having the right SDKs, the right APIs to enable you to create products which benefit our end users, that's a really great path forward, so that we can concentrate on the things that we do best and you can concentrate on the things that you do best. And I just want to give a quick example of that. I used to work as part of the pre-sales demo team, so I'd go around talking to customers and showing them Pro Tools and so on. And loudness was has been a very big sort of topic in the community, particularly in post-production. And people always said to us, "Why don't you implement kind of loudness meter in Pro Tools, rather than sort of letting third parties develop loudness meters?" And the answer is really simple, that the loudness specifications were moving so quickly. There's just no way that we would have the resources to keep up. So you'd be out, Pro Tools release would come out and there would be maybe a new standard would appear, and then we'd be sort of slow to catch up. So I think it's a really great example of where third-party developers have really sort of provided the service to our customers, being able to keep up to date with the standard, and it's something that we wouldn't be able to do. So as I say, I think that's a theme that I want to build on. So in terms of, this is our kind of rough agenda. I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing, particularly over the past year, and also a little bit about what we want to do in the future. And I will touch on Sibelius as well, which I'll try and do my best job on, but it's not really my area of expertise. But we'll talk a little bit about some of the openness that's available in Sibelius too. So the first thing is that we are, try and work closely with JUCE. Obviously, we are very closely aligned with Pace, and JUCE have been bugging us for quite some time to improve the integration of the AAX SDK with JUCE, and something which, when I took on this role, was really sort of kind of trying to drive as quickly as I could. But unfortunately, when you get lawyers involved, these things often take longer. So anyway, we got there in the end. So now we've got a dual license. So the AAX SDK is available to JUCE developers under a GPL3 license, and that's I think as of JUCE 8. I think this has a few benefits, much easier to kind of create your AX plugin. It also means there are some practical implications. So because you've got a license to the SDK as a JUCE developer, it means you can then openly discuss matters relating to the AAX SDK on JUCE forums, which wasn't possible before. The way that AX plugins work, as has always been, they do need to be signed. So they're signed by signing tools that are made available to us by Pace. So we provide that service to developers at no cost to you, but it is something that you need to do. So if you're a new developer and you want more information about that, then the address is audiosdk@avid.com. That's an address I set up so that we can try and sort of manage all these requests. It's usually me at the other end of it, and I try and sort of juggle it along with everyone else. So I always apologize if we're not always so fast to reply, but we'll try and get to them as quickly as we can. And the other thing, I'm going to talk about MIDI effects next, but we added the MIDI effect plugin category. It's just been added to the JUCE develop branch. So again, that's something which has happened quite recently. So actively working with JUCE to try and improve that experience and make it easier to make AAX plugins. So it does seem to be a sort of perception out there that AAX is more difficult to develop for, and we really hope that that's something which is we're trying to address and try and make it easier to navigate the process and get things happening as quickly as possible. So, media plugins. So I need a table really by the lectern. MIDI plugins. So this is something we introduced in our March release of this year. So just actually on that point, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but we've really accelerated our kind of release schedule for Pro Tools. So we get a Pro Tools release out once every quarter. So we've really sort of seen a lot of development over the past few years with that program. The only sort of thing that's disrupted it, we've got some got internal logistics. So we've only had one release second half of this year, but then get to March of next year, we'll be back to our same routine. So in March of this year, we added AAX MIDI plugins. So not just adding the plugins, but we sort of took the opportunity to really look at MIDI routing in Pro Tools, because trying to get sort of a MIDI effect working in Pro Tools was really quite difficult, involving multiple tracks and arming things where they didn't need to be armed and so on. So we've created this sort of MIDI chain, we call it. So if you're a user who just sort of wants to put a VI onto an instrument track, then it just works. But if you want to get tweaky, you can use the MIDI chain function to kind of route your MIDI data around, between plugins and so on. So it gives you much more flexibility. So that was a feature that we added, and as I say, and then we added a new AAX plugin category, MIDI effects. So really allowing you, third-party developers, to create a MIDI plugin to just drop into an insert slot in Pro Tools. So that seems to have been pretty successful so far. I had a really good response from the community. And I want to talk a bit about what we've been doing to sort of really try and bring this to the attention of Pro Tools users. So our strategy, the partnership strategy, and you'll see this reflected elsewhere as well, is really that what we want to do is we want to work with third-party developers. They, in all of these cases, have made a plugin available for free to Pro Tools users. In some cases, it's the full version of the plugin. It may be that it's a previous version of the full plugin, but nevertheless, completely working versions. So no trials, no demos, no timeouts. These are perpetual licenses. So even if your Pro Tools subscription stops working, you still have these plugins which you can use in the free version of Pro Tools Intro. So all of these are available, as I say, pretty much. I think the only one which involves any kind of sort of simple licensing is the mixed in key plugins. That just is a quick sort of click on a URL and back again. Everything else, no licensing required. They're just there and available to Pro Tools users. So really want to make this as kind of simple as possible. So we've got plugins from Medallic, Audio Modern, Pitch Innovations, Mixed in Key, Blease, 510K. If you're a Pro Tools user, you can get all these now. If you don't have them installed, just go to Avid link and make sure you get those installed. And yeah, there are kind of different manufacturers take different approaches. As I say, some have given us like a full version, and then they can. We do lots of marketing around that. We give the opportunity to write blog articles, and promote other plugins that they've got in their range. Other manufacturers like Mixed in Key, they've created a light version of their plugin, so that then obviously the path for them would be to upsell to the full version of their customers. So, as I say, this is something we've really been kind of building on. I think it gives added value to our customers. It cements a relationship with our partners, and gives these access to lots of new customers. That's really what we're trying to do, both ways round. Bringing Mixed in Key users looking at Pro Tools and vice versa. So the other area of plugin development that's sort of kind of really accelerated is that of ARA. So we introduced our first ARA2 plugin in 2022. So that was Melodyne, obviously working very closely with Salamani, who are architects of ARA. So obviously that's a lot of development work to bring that to market, but very exciting to see Melodyne sort of being included in Pro Tools. But of course, the second we released that version of Pro Tools with Melodyne, the next question was, well, what about all the other ARA plugins that are out there? So with ARA, it's not necessarily as simple as AAX plugins. ARA plugins takes a little bit more kind of development time and a bit more back and forth between sort of engineering departments and so on. But we started working with iZotope because Spectral Editor, RX Spectral Editor, was probably our #1 request for an ARA plugin, and then soon joined SynchroArt's Acon Digital. That was SoundRadix. Acon Digital is coming, but that was supposed to be SoundRadix. Initially, SynchroArts and SoundRadix. And we brought basically a ton of new ARA plugins to the June release, Pro Tools 2024.6. So we'll have a look at those plugins in a moment. And then in this next release, we've been working with Acon Digital, that is correct this time, and Steinberg. So that's been a fun one because, I think our customers are very sort of protective about their door. Nuendo's rubbish, or Pro Tools is rubbish, or whatever. Whereas actually at the level that we're at, there's a lot of cooperation that goes on, and so we had some really fruitful conversations with Steinberg. It's obviously great for everybody because we're bringing exposing Steinberg products to Pro Tools users, and there's sort of cross-pollination there. So that's been a really fantastic thing. And as I say, Steinberg particularly, they've got given us two, again, free versions of cut-down versions of the plugins that are extremely usable, but obviously then you can upgrade the full version to get all of the full features. And of course, we are in the lookout for more ARA partners. So we're not at a position where we're going to sort of just open up the AAX SDK. That's too many three-letter initialisms. But we are looking for partners for the future. So if you've got an ARA plugin, obviously we've got a hit list as well. But if you've got an ARA plugin and you're not already talking to us, then obviously please come and talk. So in terms of what we have so far, as I say, it's looking got a very nice selection of plugins, and as I say, quite a few of those. So the Steinberg plugins are available. There's a version available free to end users. Same with iZotope for the RX Spectral Editor. Same for Repitch Elements, SynchroArts. Same it's going to be for Acon Digital and Salamani. So we're going to have some really great sort of plugins that are available to our customers, exposing them to ARA and then encouraging them to try out the full versions and so on. So let's say that's been a very successful strategy so far, and we want to continue with that. So another SDK. So far we've been talking about very much just the traditional AAX SDK. Why is it so difficult to say? In the a lot of the old hands in the engineering department, they call it at Avid, they call it the AAX SDK, which I can't quite bring myself to say. I still want to call it AAX, but it's not always the easiest thing. So we're talking about AAX SDK. The Pro Tools scripting SDK, so that's something new that we introduced 2 years ago, actually. We've presented it for the first time here at ADC 2 years ago. So the scripting SDK, also known as PTSL, Pro Tools Scripting Language, it was born out of initially from a need from broadcasters in particularly. So there are, I think, certain workflows in fast turnaround post-production in a broadcast facility, particularly when you're doing things like kind of news and sports and so on, where it's a bit of a sausage factory. You know, stuff comes in, you need to work on it quickly and push it back out again. So all of those boring things like, you know, navigating to the session, opening it up, importing the tracks from an AAF, for example, and then at the other end, you know, consolidating everything and sort of pushing it to the next stage of production. Those are the things they wanted to automate. So those are the things we sort of concentrated on initially. But the SDK has been expanding. We've been adding more APIs with every release of Pro Tools. So some of these have been added because of specific requests. Obviously, it's a gigantic project to create a scripting SDK that really meets all needs of all Pro Tools users and developers. So we are a little way down the road. We've got a long way to go. So we're obviously kind of thinking about what are the things that people are asking for us most. At the moment, there seems to be a lot of requests around automating editing commands and this kind of thing. So, you know, as I say, we're sort of reevaluating it all the time, but sort of taking feedback as to what people want from the SDK. So I wanted to give a few examples of some products actually that have been powered by the scripting SDK. And Rebecca, I should have put source elements on here because I know that you've been implementing it as well. So I apologise. You're not on my deck, but certainly very aware of what you've been doing. So first one I just wanted to highlight was the SoundFlow Notes app. So this is a review and approval tool. It's built on the SoundFlow engine, but and obviously makes use of SoundFlow's own sort of scripting capabilities, but specifically using the track markers function. And we found that's something which, you know, people are finding really useful as a Pro Tools feature, actually, if you're keeping up with Pro Tools. But instead of just a single marker lane at the top, you can now have multiple marker lanes, but also marker lanes per track. So when it comes to, you know, sort of sending something out for a review, bringing it back with all the comments in the right places on the track is a huge benefit. So that's kind of making use of that. And in a similar vein, it's interesting, again, Dropbox, they came to us and were really, really keen to get their replay app, which they introduced this year, get it working with Pro Tools, because they know that a lot of Pro Tools customers are also Dropbox customers. So it kind of makes sense to do that. So again, they've really worked closely with us. We added a couple of APIs that they asked for, and we've got a pretty good workflow between Pro Tools and the replay app. So it pulls in, pulls in your audio. As I say, you can then share it with your your Dropbox replay team. They can all add to it, and then all of that information goes back into your Pro Tools session. So that's, again, a good use of the SDK. Another one I wanted to highlight, actually, can I play? There's a little sort of video that goes on here. Let me see if I can try and get the mouse going in the right way. Right, okay, so I could just play while I'm talking. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's come across Forte. It's quite a new sort of application, AI-driven. The idea is that, you know, music producers particularly, I think this is aimed at, are given stems and with very little information along with them. So the idea is that you drop your stems into this application, it analyzes them, it intelligently names them, it colors them up according to your, your preferences. It then drops them into your Pro Tools session, and you can also do, for example, like perform a strip silence command. So essentially all that kind of prep work. And I think this is kind of where assistive AI is kind of, is really useful. Just automating some of those boring things so you can then get on and actually kind of start mixing. So I thought that's quite a nice example. Again, if you're somebody who is interested in scripting SDK, you can use that same email address or go to developer.avid.com/scripting. It's the hopefully easy to remember email address. Now I'm going to go from what we've been doing this year to something which has been in Pro Tools forever. So AudioSuite is the original host-based processing. In the days when you had to, real-time processing could only be done on a card, then AudioSuite was a way of processing, but had to be offline because CPUs were not capable. But AudioSuite really is it's its own thing now. So the basic AudioSuite processes, you highlight a clip, open up your AudioSuite plugin, set your parameters using the preview function, the audition function, and then kind of render it back into place. But actually, there's a lot more that AudioSuite can do. It can just be used for an analysis, for example. People have used it, for example, in this screenshot here, the Revoice Pro link. So basically using AudioSuite to transport your audio from the clip from Pro Tools to something outside of Pro Tools and then bring it back again. So there's a lot of applications for AudioSuite outside of the traditional ones. And so, for example, there's a company called Respeecher. I don't know if you've come across them. They enable you to effectively replace dialogue. So you've got a piece of dialogue and you can replace it with a completely different voice using AI again. It's a cloud service. So what they do is, again, they use AudioSuite to bring the clip into the plugin. You set your parameters, push it up the cloud, does the processing, brings it back into your session. And I think using AudioSuite in combination, again, with something like the scripting SDK creates a lot of possibilities. So I think sort of cross-pollination of the SDKs that we're making, that's where things kind of start to get really interesting. Which brings us on to something which is a bit more future-looking. And I wanted to can sort of hint at some things that we want to do, but this is something a little more tangible that's actually in development, and it'll be something that will be for next year. And when there's sort of more information about it, we'll certainly share it with the developer community. But this is what we are calling the AAX panel plugin. So the idea, it's an AAX plugin that's not associated with a track, or actually any, or a clip, or any sort of part of your session infrastructure. So the reason for doing this is that it allows you to sort of host a UI which can then interact with Pro Tools that might be sort of media import export. Maybe, as we just talked about with Respeecher, something, a cloud-based process. So it could be something which is communicating with the cloud service. There could be elements where you could use the scripting, PTSL to do something useful with it. So I think a lot of people, I get a lot of requests, a lot of conversations with people about integrating their product into Pro Tools. And if we did a full integration of everything that people wanted to do, then Pro Tools would be a mess and we'd never get to it anyway. So I think this allows a kind of flexible architecture way of, sort of showing your UI and giving access to it outside of the traditional plugin infrastructure. And people have sort of tried this in the past with, kind of having to create a dummy track and putting a plugin on it, all those kind of things, which is really messy. So I'm excited about the possibilities of this. And I think it's something, as I say, we can, I think there are things, it will be able to do things that we haven't thought of. I think there's a lot of flexibility there. So yeah, I'm very excited about what this is going to do. We have a specific use case that we'll use as we sort of bring this to market. But I think, again, getting feedback from the developer community is really important. So if you've got, again, any ideas and so on, ways you might like to use this, then we always want to know. And then moving on to the section which I'm less comfortable with, which is Sibelius. Just checking what time we fit. Yeah, we're okay for time. So just wanted to highlight sort of two Sibelius APIs. Again, Christian saw another prop to you. So Sibelius has a built-in scripting language actually called Manuscript. And we using Sibelius Connect makes use of that and allows Sibelius to be controlled via a WebSocket. So it's a different approach to the Pro Tools scripting SDK, but essentially kind of gets you to the same place. And so Sibelius Control has been developed by Soundflow for remote control of Sibelius on a Stream Deck or a phone or a tablet. And similarly, Notation Express for Stream Deck has also been made available. So again, I think this gives a lot of interesting possibilities for control of Sibelius. If you're in that sort of music notation world, which I know is it's a little more of a niche market, but it's a very important one, and something that we want to make sure we keep that sort of Pro Tools Sibelius relationship tight. And actually, something we did again this year was we implemented copy and paste between Pro Tools and Sibelius, which our sort of the power users who are working on kind of movies, on scores, and working Pro Tools and Sibelius at the same time, absolutely loved that. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of more Pro Tools and Sibelius cooperation. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight is Sibelius Cloud. So Sibelius Cloud Publishing, something that's been around for quite some time. Essentially, it allows you to publish your score as a web page, but an interactive web page that you can play back, you can transpose, change the instruments. So it's a way of kind of collaborating, but it's also used by commercial sheet music sales, online sales, as a way to be able to kind of preview scores and so on. So I say Sibelius Cloud, if you're interested in that, it's very much open. If you go to, if you follow that link there, you'll find all the documentation available to you if you're interested in cloud publishing. So what's next? What's next is, as I said, I think there's definitely a recognition that there are things that we should do because those are core to Pro Tools. Those are things that we'll do best if we do them ourselves. But there's a whole load of other things, a whole world of opportunities of things that we are not able to do ourselves, that third-party developers will get there much more quickly, have the expertise and so on. So we want to give every opportunity. So we're exploring where our SDKs can go. Maybe we sort of package them up. We've been sort of thinking about sort of panning SDK, but maybe there's other applications, immersive audio, collaboration, forming, all sorts of things that we could do to really sort of help specific workflows. So as I say, kind of watch this space. Nothing's concrete on there, but certainly going into next year, I think we'll be looking at where we go with that and try and keep the developer community up to date. So I think, according to my watch, it takes us just about to 5 minutes to go, or even less than that. So if there are any questions, now would be an opportunity. If someone's got the mic, I think there's a couple there.
A big round of applause for Dave.
Thank you very much.